Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thankfully it's Friday yet again. I'm Garry Carter. I hope most of you know that I'm here. Those of you for the first time, here I am. And obviously I am, I was going to say supporting, but actually I'm supporting Jacquie Mount, who is our Director of Technical Strategy and everything else technical, but she's still always roped into anything important. In fact, I think we've given her a couple more things to do this week, which she thought she got rid of when she went into, was it retirement number 2 or 3? I've forgotten, but one of those. Anyway,
probably number 3, I think.
That's all right.
4 is on its way, Garry. 4 is on its way.
Is it? Not too soon, I hope. Not too soon, I hope. Anyway, what have you got for us today?
Well, actually, good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to be back with you again. Actually, very little, because HMRC have gone remarkably quiet. Now, obviously, we're going back 2 weeks now since we saw you at this particular thing. I think we had something called a members quiz last Friday afternoon, which was probably far more fun than this is sometimes. So really, considering that we've had 2 weeks since the last one there was an awful lot of information. The only thing that's really come out this week, the standard stuff, which I'm not going to bore you with, like, you know, when your CJRS claims are due in the deadlines and all that sort of thing. So I'm not going to go over those because there's absolutely nothing that's new. Getting fewer and fewer queries. We are getting some queries coming in on CJRS and SACE grants, but actually not that many. So either everybody's gone very quiet or you're all absolutely superb at doing it now. So that's fantastic. One thing that has come out from HMRC, well, yes, HMRC this week that we have put up on the website, but you do need to be aware. For any member who is going to do an MTD return over the weekend, you won't be able to, because the system for all things MTD, that's your VAT returns and everything else, is shutting down. Now, normally we wouldn't bother with this, but it's going down at 5 o'clock tonight and it's not coming back until 8 o'clock Monday morning. So the MTD system is down for the whole weekend. So if you don't actually have a deadline, a VAT deadline due until the 7th. So you've got time. So you can all have the weekend off from doing MTD returns. Interesting little tidbit I picked up last week, which is absolutely nothing to do with us at all, but I thought it might be interesting in putting it out there. With all this MTD and recording things digitally, what I picked up from one of the websites last week, I think, is that from the 1st of July, and this is to do with Russia, Russia is bringing in mandatory e-invoicing from the 1st of July. So the only way you can send an invoice in Russia from the 1st of July for a business is going to be through an e-system, which I thought was interesting. And there's also a lot going on about, there is something called, an organization called the Cooperation and Develop, the OECD Office for Economic Cooperation and Development. Now, huge thing. I have heard them on occasionally. I do occasionally read things that come out from it, but they're looking at all sorts of standardizations for audits and things like that. And over the last few years, they've been bringing out what is the standard audit procedure and file for VAT checks. So if you've got someone going in and auditing a VAT system, there is apparently now a European-wide or a worldwide system for doing this, which is being recognised internationally. And actually, Romania have decided they're going to bring that whole system in from next January to reduce their ever-growing VAT gap, which I thought was interesting. So. Yeah.
Actually, there are a few countries doing this. I mean, I know Australia is one, and yeah, I think UK is obviously looking at it in the background. But I take part in something called the All-Party Parliamentary Group on blockchain. And funny enough, I was about to mention, I've got it down here to mention later, but I'll mention it now anyway, because blockchain is all about joining up all of the gaps. So, you know, you go to one part of government, it knows something about you. You go to another part, and you have to repeat everything, and you have to create another account and have another password. But what they're trying to do is join it all together in blockchain. And they're having something called a distributed ledger. Now, it's not actually about money, it's about data. And they want to pass data between organizations so that it's always there. Now, those of you who rented a car recently have probably already come across this. You have to get a code number from the DVLA. You put in your it's your national insurance number, and you put in your address, and then it gives you a code, and that code lasts for 10 days. So that's a way of checking up and stopping people renting cars for nefarious purposes or whatever. So I think that's all going to come. And of course, making tax digital links into this very, very nicely for government. And, you know, it was quite an interesting discussion. I mean, it's been pushed by MPs who want government to have more access to what they're due to get. They want to make sure everything works right. But it worked very well, of course, when everybody recently was required to have the COVID jab, because that information was, they knew who you were, they knew how old you were, stuff was sent out to you. So that's a small end of it. So I think it can be right. I think the only concern that is ever brought to the front and anything like this is, well, who's going to control it? Can it be hacked? Yeah. And there was somebody on there from University of London, I think he was an IT man, and he sort of very flippantly said, it's a shame we can't go back and stop false news and everything else. He said, but that's sort of one of the consequences we have to put up with this. But the gains are greater than the problems. Well, I might argue with that. But I think also something which I mentioned to another organisation I'll talk about in a moment, is that I think the audit will start being done at the front end of accounts by bookkeepers rather than at the end in some sort of third-party oversight of accounts a bit late in the day then. And as we know from some of the huge cases that crop up quite regularly, auditors can have the wool pulled over their eyes very, very easily because they're not in the business, they're not part of. If we get it right at the beginning and then monitor it gently throughout, I think that's the way forward. So hopefully,
absolutely, I agree. No, I agree there, because as we've all said, it's our members that are in there week in, week out doing all the data entry, and hence know exactly what the VAT return should be. And just as a slight, not an amusing side, but a slightly concerning side, I occasionally help out with the exams team on marking. Every now and then when they're stuck, I do some marking for them. And what I've noticed from the early exams, particularly the A3 computerized exams, and I know we're talking about students here who are fairly new into this, and they will learn, won't they, folks? With apologies to all students who are watching. The sort of things that I find that crop up is that obviously they're not checking their work that they've put in, and the VAT account balances are completely skew-if in some cases. You know, the VAT output account have got a debit balance on because they posted the wrong thing to the wrong account. And it's interesting that, because as members, one of the things that we know we have to do each month or each quarter is obviously to check and reconcile the VAT account before you submit the VAT return, to make sure that there are no weird and wonderful figures in there and you haven't put, you know, an extra zero on something or changed the VAT. So yeah, our members should be getting it in, you know, checking it as soon as possible. And if it's right, then of course, if you're working with an accountant or an auditor that checks the year end, if they know that you are accurate, they will only do a sample and won't want to check everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing an interview with somebody when we were trying to get somebody to work with us in the finance department. And this man said that in the business that he was in, they rounded up everything to the nearest 10,000, which really leaves a lot of room for error. But then at the end, he was talking about balances, and he says, well, if I find that things don't balance, I have an account for unbalanced. Yeah. So he made it balanced by having an account for unbalanced.
Called it, of course, a suspense account.
Yeah. But he said, the thing is that it's normally not very high figures. I said, yeah, but how do you know that it's not one of many errors that just happen to have got very close, and therefore he said, oh, well, we do too many transactions to worry about that. I always found that very, very disconcerting, really.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, couple of other things on the, I suppose, on the VAT front, really. When we were doing Technical Tuesday, probably 2 months ago now, with Verna, and we were looking at the tax agent, and also when Verna did her bid and we did the panel last week on the Inspire Talk, one of the questions that cropped up was the issue of recording daily sales from a till account. And I've had quite a lot of follow-up questions on this. It's worthwhile just trying to sort of come together with this, because I've been talking to a member this week. Now, Verna's said quite rightly that it is VAT law that if you are using sales from a till, you have to keep a daily record in some digital format of all your daily sales, which we all agree with. The query was, do you have to actually enter that into your accounts package on a daily basis? Now, the member, what Verna has said is that, yes, you do need to have a daily record of your sales. Now, if you go onto the HMRC website and you have a look at daily till sales, it comes up with what you have to do under the retail scheme. But the particular member I was talking to, their client uses the standard of that scheme, but actually I think the rules are the same. So I think the answer to this, just sort of to round this one off, is that you do need to keep a digital record of sales. But don't forget, if you don't want to put those into your actual accounts package on a daily basis, I think I agreed with Verna that it will be perfectly acceptable to keep those in a spreadsheet. But of course, to preserve the digital links under NTD, what you have to do is then find a method of importing that spreadsheet into your accounts, because what you cannot do is either cut and paste, or you can't then take those monthly totals that you've worked out from your spreadsheet and re-enter them in separately. So hopefully that will sort that one out. And the only other thing I've really got is my thanks to Kirsty for this one, who always keeps me in touch with things that she finds out. Bless her. Thank you, Kirsty. I know you're on this afternoon. We're going back to the old question of the agent services account versus the agent online services account. I think that's the AOSA and the ASA. And the fact that whether you can, what information you can see on the screen. Now, I think that more information is becoming available to you. I don't really want to go into it in that much detail because I need to follow this through. But the other thing that cropped up on the Inspire tour was we were looking at making the quarterly versus annual uploads under MTD for ITSA, which obviously starts to pilot next year. Now, we were talking about whether you could have an agent who's going to upload the quarterly returns, and then what happens at the end of the year if you need another bookkeeper or an accountant or whatever to do the year-end adjustments, to upload the year-end. And interestingly enough, following on from that, Verna has followed up on this, and I have now been invited to speak to a number of officers at HMRC on your behalf to try and persuade them about what we all need to do. So that's not for about 6 weeks yet, but I'll feed back to that when it comes. But that's great that they've taken us seriously on that one. So hopefully we will be able to get that sorted out as to how we're going to work on that. And Garry, yeah, that's all I've got for everyone today.
Right, thank you, Jackie. I mean, you've got quite a few reports you're putting through at the moment, as you said. I mean, that particular one, I think a lot of people in some quite high off places still believe that bookkeepers sit in a dark corner of the room somewhere, as I've always described it, crunching numbers and then do nothing with those numbers. So the more people that we can get to explain that, the better it will be for everybody, and that'll be fantastic. We mentioned just blockchain and e-invoicing and all the rest of it. I mentioned Australia is already getting heavily involved in this. Obviously, we've got an office in Australia, you know, almost as big as the UK office here. One of the things that they were talking about, because of this new trade agreement between us and Australia, one of the pilot schemes they've had recently is to look at Australian wine and how it comes across here. So they're looking at all sorts of e-invoicing so that it's easier for British companies to buy Australian products, and obviously in reverse as well, but also to know what product they're buying, to make sure the product they're buying is the one that turns up in the bottle, you know, what grapes went into that wine, make sure it's all been covered so that you've got the health and safety certification with it and everything else, and it just all joins together. The way it was explained, and I have to say it's by the company that is trying to run this, it sounded really good, and I think we need to work on that. The other thing about blockchain, and in a minor way, is something which some of our bigger members are already doing, is comparison between members and comparison between clients. And what we're being steered towards very much at the moment is being able to say to some members, you know, okay, you've got this turnover, you've got this number of clients, is that, you know, you should be looking at this, and giving comparative data. Not obviously, it's completely anonymized, so nobody would know who it was from or anything else, but you'll be able to pitch yourself against the norm within the profession, you know, and that sort of thing. And they think that will be helpful. So one of the big ones, of course, is how much can I charge? And it's always a difficult one for us. But if we had the national figure and it was regionalised and everything else, you could look at it and say, "Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm getting a bit more than that, or I'm not doing very well. I need to up my prices." So yeah, it's interesting stuff, and it would be nice moving forward. I've done a couple of other things this last week. The Commonwealth, and we are the Commonwealth Bookkeeping accredited body. So we cover the whole of the Commonwealth technically, although we're in only, I think there are 52 countries, and we're in about 30 of those at the moment, but we're expanding. They've just released a set of 25 anti-corruption benchmarks. And obviously we're dealing with some countries in the Commonwealth that are struggling with, pretty dodgy leaders and various other things. And the Commonwealth is trying to bring these people round, get them to have better governance, get them to have rules and regulations. And one of the things that's backing up these 25 benchmarks is that professional bodies who have got an ability to police and monitor professional standards should be part of a major task force, and this transparency task force. So we put our name forward. I was due to have a meeting with the head of the task force this week, and unfortunately we couldn't quite get our Zooms in the same sort of sphere, but we are meeting up next week, and I'm in conversation with a couple of other people from the Commonwealth around the world. So I think that will be very helpful. And I think that, as we found with Australia now, there is going to be a lot more cross-trade between Commonwealth countries. So the more that we can be involved with that, and you can know that you're dealing with a country which is legal, decent, honest and truthful, etc., and you can help your clients out with that, then obviously the better that will be. And on similar sort of vein, I have spoken before about the Royal United Services Institute. They're based on Whitehall, and it's an organisation that looks after all sorts of things, including nuclear proliferation and various other things. Not interested quite in that yet for you as bookkeepers, but they have a section called the Centre for Financial Crime and Security Studies, Cscs, and they're putting also together a sort of transatlantic task force because they want to get everybody working to the same set of rules and regulations. FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, is this overarching body that I have mentioned many times before under money laundering, but they're one of them. But this transatlantic task force is an independent body comprised people like ourselves who are going to help work to ensure that we can level the playing field. And one of the things that RUSI and CFCS do is on a regular basis, they look at how we are monitoring ourselves in this country for money laundering, fraud, bribery, corruption and various other things in high places and low places. And so we're members of that. So we get into that and make sure that we fight our corner, basically, and the relevance of bookkeepers, the importance of bookkeepers and where we are. So, just one other this week, the Transparency Task Force, we had a meeting last night. I only caught part of it, but I'm recording it. And that was all about companies that build up debt, go into liquidation, then build up more debt, go into liquidation again, etc., etc. The Phoenix route, as it was called. That was quite interesting. A lot of people have been doing this during COVID, and I know some of our members have had a few problems. Thankfully, very few of you, obviously. Oh, bless you. Very few of you, thankfully. So that's all looking good. Again, we like Jackie and her. I don't know how many reports she's doing at the moment and how many committees she's sitting on, but she's being pulled from pillar to post. And, I get involved with things. We've also got people involved on education with, we're doing a big presentation for Ofqual, Office of Qualifications and various other things. Part of what ICB has to do is remain at the forefront of the profession, because immediately you stop doing this, you are forgotten. It sounds horrible, but you can sort of disappear overnight if you just forget to get your name put in the right place. So it's just something we do. It is taking up rather a lot of our time. And nowadays everybody thinks, oh, it's dead simple, we'll have a Zoom meeting. And we're almost Zoom to Zoom throughout the day, But whilst on the subject, Jackie's already mentioned it, but I can't fail to mention Inspire Tour. What a fantastic week we had. You have been so full of praise for what we've done. It has been brilliant. And yeah, so, you know, over 400 of you on one particular day. We've got people now still opening up for the first time and others going back. And one of the surveys, I don't know, Jackie, if you saw this, one of the surveys was, how many times do you have to listen to a Jackie and Werner presentation before you understand it? The majority said 4.
Yeah. Well, that was quite a heavy session, and as was Rebecca Bennyworth. I think that's probably slightly higher. I think someone said they need about 6 goes to get what Rebecca was saying, but I watched her and I thought her session was brilliant. I really do. But
the other one is Ian Holloway, who does the Wages
Yeah.
Wednesdays. Somebody said to me, is there any way I can zoom down slightly? Because he talks so fast, he crams so much in, I'm getting lost. So we've tried to suggest to him, and I think the last one he did, for at least 3 sentences, he was a lot slower, but then he sped up again afterwards. You know, it's almost like he's been played on 78 in the old days.
I know, I've spoken to him about it, and I know he's got so much he wants to get across, and he's so you know, wants to get it in, and he's as passionate about it of payroll as we are about what we do. So yeah, he's great fun, but yes, it's quite heavy going, isn't it? A lot of this stuff is, and hopefully at least you have the option to watch it again if you can bear to it. Oh, you're there. Well, I was just going to say, where is everyone? We've got no questions, but Donnie, yes, of course you can put your questions up. Let's just quickly fix that. Oh, I'm not sure I'm going to answer this one, Suzanne. MTD VAT query. What happens with Stripe and Uber till transactions, as they only provide a transaction list from their website? For Just Eat and Deliveroo, the client does get an invoice which shows sales and commissions.
Is that anything like Uber? Because on Uber, you have to go onto their website, but you can just press print and it will give you a whole shot. And they're very good invoices because it actually shows you the map of where you went. So gone are the days when you could say, I was going to see a client, when actually it shows you went home or somewhere. Can you not do that then with Stripe and Uber?
I think I'm just thinking, is it to do with the amount of VAT that's included? Because it says, with the transactions, they only provide a transaction list from their website rather than have an invoice. So presumably you can't get the VAT out of Uber. I'd have to think about that one.
Claire Kendall said, I think Rebecca, Werner and Jackie were all fabulous, so much to learn. And then Sarah Douglas has said, being Irish, I love presenters who speak fast. Makes me feel like I'm at home.
Absolutely, Sarah. Absolutely, well done. I think you probably have to look into the VAT rules, going back to Suzanne, because how you pull out the VAT. These are presumably smallish transactions, so maybe a simplified type of VAT receipt would work. So if you're downloading transactions, presumably assuming that they are VATable, which I'm sure they are, you've got the details of the supplier, you've got the details of their VAT number, and you know that that particular transaction is VATable. And under the simplified VAT rules, it may be that that's all you need, but it's something to look into. I think that's about all I can answer on that one, Suzanne. Sorry. I'm sure one of the other members, and Suzanne's come back, said it's a nightmare. I'll see if I can investigate further. Is my client is not happy about this, and over 400 transactions minimum per month. Bear with me. I just need to cancel that off. Yes, Suzanne, I will follow up on that one for you. Yeah.
Okay, I've had a pretty good week, but I must admit I've had a bit of a set to with one of our members. I'm not really very happy, and I just wanted to broach this because I'm feeling a bit up. I don't know if I'm upset, annoyed, or what I'm about it really. You will remember, those of you avid ICB TV readers, that some listeners, some time ago, I said that we had a complaint from a client, and we asked the member to explain what had happened, and she gave us a complete list of emails that had gone backwards and forwards to the client. The client was completely in the wrong, and we said, this is fantastic. And I said on the ICB TV how proud I was of our members. When you read something like this, it's so together, it knows what it, you know, they know what they're doing, and you know, I never cease to be amazed. Unfortunately, it transpired that the client hadn't actually been put on the AML online properly. So it was picked up by one of our inspectors who said, well, hold on a minute, if this ever does go to court, we can support the member, except that at the moment, the member is not a member of good standing because the AML isn't right. So we mentioned this to her. Lo and behold, she's now resigning. I think it's a bit much personally. She said, we haven't supported her. And she's got, you know, a lot of clients, and she said, look, it's been a tough time during COVID, and she hasn't been able to keep up with her AML online, going back 3.5 years. And COVID's been with us a long time, but I really don't think it was that long. And sometimes I think, you know, we are here to support our members. We really are. We'll do whatever we can for you. But you've got to realize also that we are a professional body. You are professional bookkeepers, and there are certain things you're required to do. And yeah, it just really annoys me when we bend over backwards for people and then they drop just like that because they suddenly think that, you know, that they're not getting supported by. We are here to support you, and we do. We will fight your corner. But, you know, if you tie our hands behind our back, what else can we do? So I'm very annoyed about that. But anyway, so that got that bit off my chest. I don't want to ruin the entire weekend for everybody. Yeah. These are the sorts of things that give me sleepless nights on occasions. I don't know how we please all of the people all of the time. We do our best. Anyway, Jackie,
okay,
light and interesting to talk about.
Yeah, light and interesting. We're all into that this afternoon, folks. Donna's come back with her 2 queries. Right, now this is an interesting one. How do you account for VAT on a Wix invoice based in Tel Aviv with an EU VAT number? They've included VAT at 20%. Could I have pre and post Brexit, please? Well, pre-Brexit, presumably it would have been business to business, or outside, if they've got an EU VAT number, it should have been business to business with no VAT. Now, what's happening now is that at some stage, they're probably charging VAT, because if you sell into the country, you have to charge their VAT rate, which is why they're charging 20%. Now, it may very well be that because that's UK VAT on the first one, you might have to pay it to get it into the country if you're not using postponed VAT, and then claim it back on the VAT return. So that's how that one would have worked. Now, the other one is a client purchased an item from Netherlands pre-Brexit, not able to go back and get a new invoice. VAT at 21% has been included. How do we account for this, please? Well, if it's pre-Brexit, again, it should have been an EU sale with no VAT shown. So it would have been an acquisition. And again, if it's been invoiced post-Brexit, then it should have been VAT at 20%, which is UK VAT. So we're getting a lot of this where we know what the theory is, but in practice it isn't happening. So not quite sure what to do about that. And how do you account for that? Is it a no VAT purchase? Well, you're not going to be able to claim back the VAT from the Netherlands on the 21% if they've invoiced that, and they shouldn't have invoiced it because it's an export. So it might have to be a no VAT. And has anyone's got any other ideas where they've actually covers that? So Donna, I hope that that covers that. If you've got any more questions, come back to me on a one-to-one and I'll deal with those for you.
Sarah Douglas has very kindly come back and said, look, everybody knows we've got to do our IML and therefore we should just get on with it. Now, I agree. I absolutely understand that COVID has been extraordinarily difficult for most people, for a lot of people at least. And, you know, you've coped well and you've had a lot of extra work to do. You've picked up a lot of extra clients. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you do need to comply with the law. And you know, one of the members said to me, "Oh, that's terrible." It's a bit like saying I've grown my business, so instead of having 4 lorries now, I've got 6, and I haven't had time to tax the other 2. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, you can't look the other way when it comes to the law. The laws are there for very good reason. It's because there is a lot of money laundering. There's a lot of fraud taking place in big companies, small companies right across the country. And, you know, it's robbing the Treasury of billions of pounds every year, and we have to play our part. And I really do believe if you get it right and do it properly at the appropriate time, it takes up very little time. We give you a piece of software which sorts it all out for you in most cases. I know it needs tweaking occasionally, you know, because your client doesn't quite fit all of the boxes, but you know, that was only ever brought in just to help you all out so that you'd stand a better chance of getting this done properly. And we didn't want you running around like rabbits in the headlights. And that goes back now to what, 2007-8 we introduced it. And, you know, it's being used for over 110,000 clients, you know, so it's a lot of clients that are on that system. So I know you've got a lot of work to do, but, you know, if you're building a client base, you have to take the responsibility as well, I'm afraid. Look out for my next blog. I'll do another Gary's gripe, obviously, so everybody will read it then. You only ever read my gripes. If I say something nice, nobody bothers.
Okay, Charlotte's come in. Afternoon, Charlotte. Nice to be with you. One-stop shop developments, a query not yet resolved. For example, now this is the one-stop shop where your e-commerce being sold online from the 1st of July. This is coming in. A UK company has stopped in the EU selling business to consumer via an EU platform. Is the EU platform responsible for completing the OSS form? I believe the answer to that is yes, because it is a European-wide ruling from the 1st of January that if you're selling through an online platform marketplace, then it is now the marketplace which is responsible for declaring and paying the VAT. So once the OSS is introduced on the 1st of July, which is now not very long, next week, I think, isn't it? Yeah, next week. Then, as far as I understand it, your arrangement is with the platform, and any VAT dealt with is between you and the platform. And it should be done on a zero rate sale to them. They then sell on, and they should deal with the VAT at the different levels for each country into which they're selling, and they'll report it through whichever country they're in. If it's Netherlands or something like that, or France or Germany, they'll report it. So I think the answer to that, Charlotte, is yes. I think it should be the EU platform that's responsible, because they're the people that are actually selling to the final customer. So hopefully that sorts that one out. Still don't quite sure how this is going to work in practice, but we'll see. I've been talking to one of these other companies that aims to sort out all your EU VAT problems and a service for you. So I don't know whether they might be of any help to us. I don't know, but it's a company I found this week, and I've been in touch with them. So we might be able to get some more information on this. I think, yeah, you're all very quiet this afternoon. Are you asleep?
Congratulate Natalie Botcher for winning our competition. And we've had some really positive comments from her. That's really, really nice. And she's done something recently on, I think it was on Twitter, just to say how proud she was to be an ICB bookkeeper when she was able, being interviewed by quite a high-level firm of accountants, and they were really impressed that she was very up to date with everything. And again, she credited ICB TV and particularly you, Jackie, for much of that. So that's really excellent. It is good that people are picking up stuff from this and being able to use it. So that's brilliant. Yeah, I think we're probably about there. It's very early to finish, but
I know I've got one other thing. I've got some books. We were talking about favorite books. I've forgot to bring the other one down. But this is the first one. I don't know if you, that's not coming back to front, is it? It looks back to front on mine. Alan Cummings, these are both autobiographies, and this one is really good. He's an actor, and he's talking about his background, and that was very interesting because he had a quite dysfunctional relationship with his father. And the other one that I've just finished reading, which if you're interested in current affairs and news, is Sir Trevor Mcdonald's autobiography called An Improbable Life. Absolutely fascinating, because it documents his childhood right from when he was in the Caribbean right the way through to when he finished. And it's taken in when he did his war correspondence and when he did his American stint and moving from the BBC to the ITV and facing the news and things. So both of those I've read fairly recently, and both are really good if you like autobiographies. Quite an easy read, but also both of them you can dip in and dip out. So, we've got some more. Carol's come up and said, I recommend The Last Family in England by Matt Haig, especially if you own a dog.
Well, I can recommend Time. I don't know how many people of you have been watching this. It's a bit harrowing on occasions, but it's about the prison system. It's about somebody that goes into prison and then somebody who is a prison guard. And, you know, it really is, as I say, it's a little bit harrowing, but actually it's really good drama. It's what we do well. And it's got Sean Bean and Stephen Graham in it. They're the two main characters, and they play particularly good parts. But then there's a whole supporting cast which is very believable. So you know, if you get chance, just have a look at that. It's another Jimmy McGovern, so that'll probably say a lot. It's based in sort of the Liverpool area, and it is hard hitting, but yeah, it's worth watching.
Interesting, Gary. Kirsty's a sucker for punishment because she said Time was great. I watched all 4 at once.
Yeah, I must admit I watched 3 and then 1. I thought 3 was enough for one night because
I haven't watched it yet. I'm trying to decide. I know Leslie doesn't want to watch it, so I will have to watch it late at night one night, I think.
Yeah, it's worth watching. But
yeah,
you know, one comment at the end was, this is real life in a prison, and it just it's not very nice, but it's
what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, the personal interactions in it and everything else are very, very helpful, very, very sort of good, very strong.
Quick technical one coming from Suzanne again. Am I correct in saying that if a client puts a new carpet down in their office, which is part of their house and not 100% wholly for business use, that they cannot claim the VAT? The client is giving me a hard time on this. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Suzanne. Don't think they can claim the VAT back if it's not completely for business. I mean, you might be able to get away with a percentage of it, but no, I think you're right. I don't think you can claim, certainly not all of it. Helen says Time is brilliant.
Good.
Donna says bit late to the party, but Unforgotten is really good.
Unforgotten. Now that rings a bell. Yeah, Unforgotten.
Oh, and Kirsty's also watching something called Down Below on Netflix, based on the life of a luxury yacht charter. I might watch that one, Kirsty. Off to the cinema later to see Fast and Furious 9. Yeah, they were interviewing two of the stars on that on the One Show last night. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Unforgotten. Yeah, that's a good one. And all right, okay.
Oh, and an interesting one from Sarah's moving her offices back into a beautiful building in Glasgow with lots of history and beautiful furniture. She's going to put some pictures up. So, oh, well, good luck with that, Sarah. That's great. Oh, yes, Helen, Jeremy Clarkson's Farm is hilarious. I think that's on Amazon Prime, isn't it? I have watched the first 6 of 8 and we're absolutely dedicated to it. He is so funny. So if you have access to Prime, then yeah, I agree with you. That is well worth watching.
Another good film, actually, if you get the chance, is The Foreigner, and that's got Pierce Brosnan in it. I like Pierce Brosnan. I'm not sure he was the best of the Bonds by any stretch of the imagination, but he does play a good part, and he plays a sort of an Irishman in this. But it's it's a really good film, and it's worth watching. It's got Jackie Chan in it, and again, you think of Jackie Chan as a bit of a light actor, but actually it's not all about kung fu and all that sort of stuff. But he plays a very serious character, and you know it's a really good film. So keep an eye out for that one.
One of Us on Netflix comes from Maggie. Sarah's into Parasite. Is a great movie. Its subtitles bump, won loads of awards, and Usha is saying Lupin on Netflix is a must watch.
Just another Pierce Brosnan film, as we're on Pierce Brosnan, but because we've been talking about blockchain today, if you get a chance to watch IT, and it's I.T. It stands obviously for intelligence and interaction and everything. Watch it. It's a little bit frightening what can happen with technology if it's used incorrectly. Now, it all works out well and everything else, but you should watch it. It's about somebody who falls foul of a young techie, and the young techie takes over his life. But it's a very well acted and good film. So, yeah, I do watch nice films. I don't always watch these harrowing films at all, but I'm just giving you a few there. As far as I'm concerned, you know, yeah, what have we else watched this week? Anyway, we watched a couple of easy ones. What was the follow-up to Four Weddings and a Funeral, I reckon? Notting Hill. I always think that's funny. That's easygoing. And it takes your mind off things like time.
Yeah. I have to say, I have a few really old favourites like that if I'm really stuck or I'm feeling really down, they always lift you, don't they? Notting Hill's always a good one to lift your spirits.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had 5 questions, I think it was, today, and so far we've got 13 comments on film and television. So it's obviously Friday, isn't it?
Comes up Friday afternoon, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, never mind. So
it's a nice light-hearted end of the week, isn't it? I think we're almost through the heavy stuff. Yeah, we're through the heavy stuff of COVID. We all know what we're doing now, all the coronavirus stuff and the furlough stuff. So yeah, it's a good way to end off the week.
Yeah, and we've had some nice comments from people here about what we do to support you. That's good. It is what we're here for. But you know, and we don't expect you to keep telling us how wonderful we are. But you know, when you've done something wrong, I think occasionally you've got to own up and just not kick us every time. So yeah, sorry about
that. I have a gripe. It's not a bookkeeping gripe, it's a gardening gripe. And I'm going to say I hate snails and slugs. They have decimated half of my baby veggies and a quarter of my strawberry field this strawberry pots this year. So I'm very anti slugs and snails at the moment. So I don't know when anybody else suffers from those. I had a hedgehog in the garden last year, which controlled them, but he's disappeared this year. So I relocate slugs to the compost. Yeah, I do sometimes, but they come back, Claire. That's the problem. Oh, Carol's just watched the original Casino Royale with David Niven. Superb. Fiona says, oh, this has started up another one. Fiona says, where have all the worms gone? In my compost bin. I can tell you where they are. Richard Jackson says, slug pellets are wonderful. Try not to use them. And Sarah says, get them drunk on IPA. It works. Kat says, oh gosh, I love this. Kat says we use sheep fleece on our garden, which stops the slugs getting to the plants. And eggshells are good. Yeah, I don't use enough eggshells to stop them.
Didn't they always used to say you put Newcastle brown around the bottom of rose trees or something other like this? I mean, just using stout or something. Yeah, I mean, whether or not that's somebody who's been caught fallen over in the bushes and claimed he was trying to clean up the roses, I don't know, but never mind.
Small touch. What I'm actually doing now is the best thing I found for them is salt. So what I've got now, I dug up some, my gorgeous red poppies had collapsed all over the path, so I had to lift them up. And I literally counted underneath this huge fallen load of red poppies. I counted 50 slugs and snails under there. So they all went into a big bin with salt and they've just gone now. So salt works for me. But not on the garden.
Just again, Newcastle Brown does work really well.
Yeah, dark beers. Yeah. Higher alcohol content, I think, Sarah, there. Oh, well, that got another conversation going anyway.
It has, yes. So we'll have to have a gardener's corner again or something like that.
Yeah, I have to say the strawberries that did survive them are absolutely delicious. So yeah. Right. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and I hope the information we gave you was interesting, all to do with bookkeeping and everything else. We've got another one here. We've got to do a whole program on garlic.
Yeah, I've just harvested my first garlic harvest. I've never grown garlic before, and it's gone really, really well. I've just got it. The trouble is, I've got it all laid out drying in the shed at the moment, and the shed absolutely reeks of garlic. So.
Yeah. Anyway, Angela there and Claire Kendall, enjoy your weekend. Yeah, so folks, look, have a lovely weekend. I don't know if by you it's gonna my little BBC weather thing. It says I'm getting 100% definitely rain on Sunday, so I'm not looking forward to that one. But it's nice and sunny at the moment, so this is a bit of through the window.
We're going to see my son on Sunday for lunch for the first time in nearly 10 months since I've seen that side of the family. So I'm looking forward to that. So
well, we shall be seeing our son as well, because I know, looking at me, you won't be able to believe it, but my son's actually 40 years old.
Oh, is it? I knew it's today, isn't it? I knew this is, but oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was obviously a child father, but never mind.
Yeah, I'm doing that with my son as well. My son's a lot older than that, Garry.
Yeah, well,
Great fun.
I remember when I was about 14 or something or other, walking around Shrewsbury with my mother, and she said, "Look, call me Margaret. Don't call me mother. You make me feel old." Anyway, bye. We're getting a bit silly here now. So have a lovely weekend.
Lovely weekend.
It's Friday, but we'll see you next Friday. And yeah, be good, be careful.
Take care.
Be professional. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Take care.